So many choices. What's up guys, Andrew here on my channel GearedInc, where I get to share what I'm passionate about with you. And my channel is PC Tech, Games, and Gear. Ignore the band-aid today. I cut my finger, but literally I'm gonna film this regardless, so just try not to pay attention to it, even though I've now brought your attention to it. So, what resolution should you be gaming on? I don't really want to say this is a tale as old as time, but it kinda is. 2017, 2018 was the first year that consoles finally were starting to really scratch into the 4K arena. Now, that doesn't mean that you're still able to get real 4K with consoles. A lot of times these images are upscaled in terms of being able to actually get a native 4K resolution. Even the Xbox One X or Xbox X and the PS4 Pro aren't really capable of hitting those targets of 60 FPS 4K yet. That being said, it's opened up the door to kind of the conversation, because with consoles trying to push the 4K limit, PCs, which obviously have the advantages of being more customizable among many other reasons, because I'm a PC enthusiast, it basically is forcing kind of the PC world's hand, more or less. Don't worry if you're not ready to change to 4K gaming, or you're worried that you're going to be missing out, because there are a lot of things to take into consideration, at least when we're talking about PC gaming and even console gaming to an extent. Now, the other reason that this is so talked about right now is because Nvidia is supposedly leaking their new GPU any day now, or any week now. We should be seeing the next gen. And if performance scaling from the previous generation is any indication, we should see hopefully a single GPU that's capable of hitting at least 60 FPS at 4K at higher settings, which the 1080 Ti isn't even capable of doing that across all titles. That doesn't necessarily mean that all of a sudden we're all going to be 4K gaming, because obviously that's going to have a pretty hefty price tag. Most people aren't going to be able to afford it. And for the first time, we are fully entering the 4K arena in terms of gaming just overall. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over some of the reasons why I don't want anyone to think that they have to get caught up in the hype train for 4K, more or less, but we're going to pro-con it and go over some of the details and kind of deconstruct the subject. So the first thing I want to do is I want to go over some stills and videos from games. So here we have a picture of 1080p for Overwatch. Now, this is competitive esports title, and as you can see, even though the details look good because everything is set to the highest possible settings, when we move to 1440p, which is what I personally play on, you can see this is where I think the greatest jump honestly is, or gain overall, in terms of the graphical fidelity of the game itself. 4K obviously smooths out all the edges, where you're getting much more pixels per square inch, so the smoothness overall looks great. But this is an esports title, and 1080p to 4K isn't really going to affect your gaming. Fortnite, the most played game on the planet with a gamer base more than the population of Canada, same thing. So at 1080p, yes, you can see the details. Jumping up to 1440p, yes, a greater detail, sure. 4K, yeah, it looks great. But again, is there any real utility or value to you? Not really. It's not going to affect your gaming performance, and in esports titles, you want a system that's capable of pushing out more frames regardless of the resolution. In doing benchmarks with Rainbow Six Siege, even though we're not even talking about FPS, in fact, I purposely hid the counters on this because I want you just to kind of get a feel for it. When you're going through this, when we're looking at a 1080p image, is the difference really enough to warrant spending the extra money to be able to game in 4K? Really not, because these again are all esports titles, but the reason I'm bringing these up is because these are the games that are played really the most. Now, a game that you might actually take advantage of 4K and it might make a difference is The Witcher. So here we have a rendering of 1080p. The game still looks great under any conditions, but everything is maxed out, highest preset possible. You can see there on Geralt, kind of the details of armor, but there's a little bit of pixelation, and obviously the further you get away, the less, or more I should say, the grainy the image is. Going to 1440p, again, kind of a repeat of the same thing. The image isn't, nearly as grainy. It actually looks quite a bit different, and I argue that 1440p from 1080 is where you're going to see the most improvement. Now, going 4K, again, because we have more pixels square inch, the armor looks very, very smooth. You'll notice that details in the background now have had their edges kind of smoothed out. But again, is it worth the money? Maybe for a game like The Witcher it is. It's not about 1080p or 1440p or 4K, even though I would rather everyone invest more in a 1440p high refresh monitor, because I think that's going to be more realistic for most of us. Most games that are played right now are the esports games, and a lot of those are specifically designed to be as accessible to as many people as possible. So they don't really benefit from 4K in the way something like The Witcher, which the single player experience does. Now, I'm not saying that 4K isn't a great experience, because it really is. And when you're playing on a 4K monitor, the level of detail in some of these games is absolutely astonishing. But my point is that even though we have GPUs that are potentially going to be able to do 4K gaming, it doesn't mean that you have to hop on the bandwagon or you feel like you should. And the reason I say that is because more people than ever now stream. Streaming is where we really are running into some bottlenecks in terms of gaming, more than even the hardware that is needed to do 4K gaming. And the reason I bring that up is because Twitch, the biggest streaming platform there is, still doesn't even have support really for 4K streaming, 1080p being the highest. But the other kind of issue you're running into is bitrate, meaning the amount of data that is being sent from your computer, all the graphics, sound, everything, and there are limits on that because of internet speed. So that is one of the biggest hurdles that we yet have to overcome, is how much internet speed we can supply, because a 4K image requires a ton. And right now there's not really anything out there available. Now YouTube technically does support 4K streaming. Once again, even if you have the system to do it, you're gonna have to have a pretty hefty internet connection, which still the vast majority of the world does not. And so if you're talking about gaming, until Twitch or until basically faster internet becomes more commonplace in conjunction with cheaper hardware able to hit the numbers we want to see for 4K, I really don't think that it's worth the upgrade for most people. Now, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't game on 4K if you can. I certainly am going to, and I am definitely an enthusiast, but I'm in the position where I'm able to. If you're going to be investing in a resolution monitor, you know, and you don't know if you want to do 1080p, if you want to do 1440p, 4K, 1440p right now is like the forgotten, like, redheaded stepchild, because the 4K has been marketed so heavily to us, but really I think 1440p is where you see the most gains for the best amount of money. The difference from 1080p to 1440p, as we saw in those images, is significant enough to me to warrant the upgrade, much more than 1440p to 4K. And because obviously you have a 1440p, especially if you get a higher refresh monitor, you'll be able to go down to 1080p and play or stream and still not lose out on graphical fidelity for games where you want to have you know, really the images pop. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. This was a breakdown analysis. The kind of summary of all this is, if 4K gaming is absolutely what you want to do, great, but know that you're still on the bleeding edge, and that the systems that 4K would maybe matter in, like streaming, simply aren't in place yet to make it viable for the majority of people, even if the hardware was cheap enough to do it. If you like this video, go ahead and leave me a big thumbs up. If you didn't, go ahead and leave me a thumbs down, but remember to hit that subscribe button and hit the bell icon. YouTube continues to mess up in terms of giving people notifications. Guys, thank you so much. This is a big shout out. I appreciate all my Patreons, of course, my Twitch subs. Make sure you use my Amazon affiliate link. I've actually linked down in the description below the monitors that I personally like, or I personally had experience with. So if you're looking for a monitor, you can use one of my links, or you know, obviously to support me directly through Amazon. It means a lot to me. But just know how grateful I am for every single one of you. The channel and my growth this year, I say it all the time, but I really mean it, has been absolutely astounding. Let's hit 12,500 subs by 2019, and we will do another giveaway. You guys know my giveaways are always great. But as always, guys, whether you sub or whether you watch these videos or not, I'm going to continue to make them, because ultimately it's about what I love to do, which is sharing my passion with all of you. But I hope to see all of you next time here on GearedInc.